this special edition of Channels, the Nextflow podcast. I'm Geraldine, and today I'm delighted to bring you a set of interviews from 4 wonderful members of the Nextflow community who attended the NF Core hackathon when we were there last month in Barcelona. I had the pleasure of talking with Raquel Manzano, Edmund Miller, Rieke, Hanssen, and Francesco Lescai about their work, about NF Core, and about the importance of community. Please enjoy. First up, I sat down with Raquel Manzano, a PhD candidate at Cambridge University. We're here at the NF Core hackathon, and this is Raquel, a member of the NF Core community. Raquel, would you please introduce yourself?
So my name is Raquel Manzano, and I come from the University of Cambridge. I am based at Cancer Research UK. And I've been an NF Core member for over a year now. It's been a very exciting journey. I've been also lucky enough that I've been part of the mentorship program this year, which was quite exciting. Maxime Garcia was my mentor, and it was a great experience.
That's wonderful. So can you tell me a little bit about your research and your work and how you got into NF Core in the first place?
I am a part-time bioinformatician, part-time PhD student, and what I'm trying to do for my PhD is looking at intratumoral heterogeneity from bulk sequencing data. And you can do that in DNA looking at mutations. So I do a lot of variant calling. And then I wanted to do the same for RNA sequencing. And if you're not very familiar with mutations in RNA, well, it's slightly challenging. There are some best practices. We have, of course, the JTK best practices that you can follow, and it uses the haplotype caller. You are very familiar with it, I'm sure.
A little bit.
But the problem is that I wanted to do a bit more, right? I wanted to do somatic variant calling, and then I went on the hunt to see what people have done around, looking for papers and trying to find code that works nicely. And that is where I hit a little bit of a bottleneck, because there are pipelines out there, they work, but you have to do a lot of tweaking and fighting and debugging. And I don't know, maybe it's because I'm a bioinformatician, but I was like, you know what, I'm doing a PhD. I want to do something that I don't have to suffer to install it, and I don't want my users to feel the same way when I do that. So I wanted to do something reproducible and scalable, because I also wanted to analyze big data sets like TCGA or the ICGC dataset or Harwick. And that's when I found RNA-Bar, that is a pipeline in NF Core that does the JTK best practices. And again, I said I wanted to do a bit more, and then I keep digging. I found Sarek, and then in there I found, wow, this is everything that I want to do. So I said, okay, I want to mix things, and that is when I contacted people at NF Core. I joined the Slack channel, and that really was a discoverment for me, because I am the only one doing Nextflow in my institute. Almost. There are a few people doing it, but not at the same level that I wanted to, and not really people that we are not doing the same thing. So it's not something that I can sit with someone and have a coffee and ask questions.
Right.
So the community was amazing. I think it's the best thing about Nextflow. I don't know how you feel, because you also joined recently, but I think that it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the things that interested me about Nextflow, and it's really the NF Core community, and the fact that there's really this strong grassroots movement to come together and collaborate on developing these kind of reference standardized pipelines in a very in a templated way with a lot of standardization around.
Yeah, exactly. To me it was like a moment of sync with this community, because that's what I wanted to do. And when I started writing messages, people actually would answer very helpfully, which I think is amazing. And then I said, maybe I went to the new pipelines channel and I asked, well, I want to do this for my PhD, so it will be a mixture of this pipeline, this pipeline, but I will probably add more things to it. And then it was Maxime who answered. He said, yes. He said yes. I got into it, and then I started a very deep dive into Nextflow. I basically stopped working for a month just reading Nextflow code, because you have to understand at this point, I only knew that Nextflow existed. I haven't done any Nextflow coding, so I was like, okay, so I need to understand what is going on. And NF Core pipelines, I think for a new user, it can be very overwhelming because there are a lot of
I just joined. I just joined Sakara yesterday. I have run the Hello World example and a tutorial pipeline.
Oh, wow.
So technically, I've run 2 pipelines already.
Wow.
I'm feeling very confident. Later today or tomorrow, I think I'm going to run one of the. I'm going to try running one of the real pipelines.
I have to say,
I think I can run your pipeline.
I'm doing the testing. I'm finishing the full test today. That's what I want. So
very nice.
Yeah, wish me luck.
I do. Yes.
Yeah, because the test was working yesterday, and today I tried and I broke it, but it's working again. So hey, there we go. It's there. I really pushing for a first release soon.
You mentioned the mentorship program. Can you tell me a little more about that?
So yeah, actually, so I joined the mentorship program this year because I was working with things, messaging with Maxime a lot and other people. Again, they are super helpful and they answer things. And then I felt like the pipeline is done, but it sort of needs like a final push. And I was a little bit stuck on that sense because I didn't know the questions to ask. That is, so I hit there a little bit of a bottleneck. And then I saw that there was the mentorship scheme. I said, this is the perfect opportunity to actually have someone sit with me and, just bomb with questions. And I joined, I applied, I got it. I didn't know who my mentor was. I was just told, you got someone that knows a lot. And I was like, is it Maxime? Because he's always there. And I actually got Maxime and I'm very happy about it because I think he and we work really well. I'm also a person that gets very excited very easily. I always like to try new things. I'm very stubborn about errors and things like this. And in general, I work very well with Maxime. And I do like to work independently, but sometimes I do, bomb questions for like 10 minutes and then I'm done for the day. But yeah, to me it was a really good experience. And what I like about it was also to get to know other mentors and mentees. That was really good. The only thing that I missed, and I already said that in the feedback, is that it would have been nice to have like something social, like a small gather of the mentors and mentees to get to know each other because we had monthly meetings, which was great. But then, something more like social, not just talking about our projects.
Maybe, are you thinking like something in person or even just a Zoom would be nice?
I would love in person. Yeah, in person is always great, but I understand because there were people from like Brazil, Singapore, I think, or from the Asian part. So I understand that it's difficult. But
maybe that's something we could do as part of the NF Core hackathons, to be like a little gathering specifically for the alumni. Of the mentorship program.
Yeah, no, I would love that. And I actually asked in the last session that we had, who is going to I would love to meet you guys, but not many were going. Okay. I was like, okay,
that's
it's okay. It's okay. But it's nice because I got to meet Maxime in person. So I got to hack him.
Oh, nice. So
that was very nice.
I met him yesterday in person as well. And we had a really long discussion in French about technical underpinnings of Nextflow, which was really cool. Which was fun. I mean, it's my native language, so it's not, and his too, so it's not like a feat of linguistics.
Well, but that's funny. Nice. Is it weird to discuss things in your native language? Because for me, sometimes I feel when I try to discuss things in Spanish, I'm like, I switch to English.
Every 3 words is like there's an English word that comes out. Because it's so. I once gave a GHK seminar fully in French at Pasteur, and it was so complicated. It was challenging, but it was kind of fun though. It was all a French audience, so might as well. Anyway, that's a bit of an aside. But you mentioned you mentioned the mentorship program, and that's something that's I think so far has been funded by CZI, the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative.
I think so.
And I think we're hoping to do another round if we can secure the funding, which obviously produces results. So
it does. And I actually another thing that I like to suggest things. I'm sorry. I said that it would be nice to have like for the final month or something like that, like a couple of days, if we cannot meet in person, we can do an online hackathon.
Oh yeah,
because it's a nice way to give like a final push to those projects that we are all doing. Yeah, exactly. Even if it is online, if we have something like the other town we are doing here,
and a little show and tell, maybe just like kind of show off what you did and what you achieved. It's always a good feeling.
Yeah. But it's nice because I think I'm gonna keep collaborating with people that are also working with RNA-seq data anyway. So I think it's a great place to also find people that are doing something similar, and then you can collaborate. And in my case, again, it was like such a relief because I was feeling lonely at work. So having this community and the mentorship and the people that I get to meet here is, for me, I'm super happy.
It has a lot of value, I think. I've experienced that too in the past, feeling a little isolated. When I started out doing bioinformatics, I was in a wet lab environment, and it was, I was teaching myself Python and just struggling with everything.
Oh, yeah, I've been there, so yeah.
And the opportunity, I remember I convinced my advisor to let me go to SciPy, travel to go to SciPy, Scientific Python Conference. And that was so great.
Yeah.
I mean, it was 10 years ago. A little over, actually, it was more. It was almost 15 years ago. Yeah. But it was really nice because I met people who were struggling with the same problems, and it was just wonderful. The feeling of community, the feeling of not struggling alone. We could struggle together.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I really like. And complain together.
Yes.
Complaining is so healthy.
So much complaining.
I love it.
But it's cathartic. Yes. And also sometimes you actually discover solutions. Like people are like, oh yeah, I had that problem, I solved it. And then you just get breakthroughs. And SciPy was like, people from all scientific disciplines. So it wasn't just biology either. So that was interesting for me too, to get out of the silo of just biology. So that was really cool. Yeah. Fun times. Oh, speaking of traveling, when we talked earlier, you mentioned the OBF.
Yeah, I'm actually, again, I'm very lucky because I didn't have any funding to come here. And I really wanted to come because it was a good opportunity to get to meet my mentor and get to know people from the community. And it was Phil who actually suggested, oh, maybe you can apply to the OBF Bioinformatics. It's the Open Bioinformatics Foundation. And they have a fantastic travel grant that I actually got. So I am super happy.
That's
and
wonderful.
they funded, they gave me $1,000 to come here. And then thankfully my PI is covering the rest because, Barcelona is expensive. But I'm lucky enough that I got everything covered, so very happy to be here.
Fellowships like that make a really big difference to enable this kind of thing. Yeah. And I know from my other side of my life, the OBF fellowships covered not just travel, but also things like expenses related to going to conferences, including if you need to do an online conference and if you don't have the right equipment.
Yes, they also offer to pay that. I think it's just fantastic. And what I found
they'll cover childcare costs as well, which is really important.
That's amazing. Ones, so. Yeah, exactly. And childcare is expensive.
Oh my gosh.
So it's great. And what I really like is that it's open to everyone, and that I really appreciate it because I wasn't sure because I am in the UK, so I didn't know. But it's open to everyone. Anyone can apply. It's open bioinformatics. And I really love the idea because I don't like, when I use code, I like that it's open source, that you can reproduce in. Well, that's why I got into Nextflow anyway. So I really like that idea. And, to have people that promote that and they fund them, that's just fantastic.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Well, thank you so much, Geraldine. It's great to be here talking to you. I already told you, but I'm a big fan of your work. So this was amazing. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, enjoy the rest of the hackathon and the summit the rest of this week. And see you around.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Edmund Miller, PhD candidate at the University of Texas in Dallas.
Hi, Edmund.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and what do you do?
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Edmund. I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Texas at Dallas. I study functional genomics. More specifically, I'm interested in some regulatory RNAs called eRNAs, which stands for enhancer RNAs.
And what kind of data types do you work with as part of that?
So typically NGS data types. From those, it's kind of like RNA-seq, but usually you're doing slightly different things to get the nascent transcripts to come out versus just getting the steady state mRNAs.
Okay. So is there a lot of what kind of challenges do you face in that regard? Is it there's a lot of data, or the science is just not very established and there's a lot of development that needs to be done?
Probably more the latter. It's a little more niche of a field. It requires a lot of knowledge for understanding the various biology aspects that are going on, versus RNA-seq's a I wouldn't say simpler, but an easier to say this gene's going up, this map's here for that. And the assays, more importantly, more people use the assays commonly, so the tools are very run through. So that's a little bit of the difference with nascent, was I had a lot of issues with reproducibility when I first started working on it.
Right, that makes sense. So what brought you to Nextflow and NF Core?
That's good. My origin story is kind of, I picked up the project from a previous PhD student, and he had done the project when he first started, and then 2 or 3 years later, my PI was like, hey, you can pick this up too. And so he hadn't written anything down at the beginning of it. So I just had what was in the paper of like, here's what I ran for that. Have fun. And so I had a lot of difficulty trying to reproduce the exact eRNAs that he had identified.
Oh, I see.
Is kind of where I got started, and got to like 25% or so like that weren't reproducible on those. And then that's actually been later validated in a paper that came out last year.
Nice.
That they found, which was really
Very
nice.
nice.
So yeah, I started out with that, struggled with reproducibility, got into workflow managers from that, looked at SnakeMake and Nextflow, and this was back in 2017, so that was still DSL1.
So you started out with SnakeMake out of the gate, kind of?
Yeah, kind of out of the gate. Did a little bit of Make, but then I quickly got into workflow managers from that.
And how did you get to Nextflow from there?
And so from there, I was starting to, it was right before the pandemic hit. It was right before spring break in March there.
Yeah.
And we had a lab meeting so I could teach everybody all of the templates that I made for our SnakeMake workflows. I had CI set up, testing, CI, all that good stuff. Reports being generated automatically. I was starting to work on that. And then right before I was gonna present it to them, I found NF Core. And I'm like, man, they're already doing all this stuff. And there's so many people already involved. This is great.
And so you decided to just scrap what you had already done, and you already had done a bunch of work, and you decided, screw that, I'm just going to use this new thing. And
yeah, exactly. It was right. I think the NF Core, the Crick hackathon was like the week after that. And I just watched all the activity on Slack, and I was like, I gotta join in on this, because I'm a big proponent of not reduplicating others' efforts and like reinventing the wheel. I'd rather everybody work together on it.
So you saw that and you were like, okay, it's worth it throwing that stuff away and just starting fresh, but because this is part of being part of the community. Yeah, nice.
Had nothing to do with the language, honestly.
That makes total sense. It's one of the things that's fascinated me, is I've been sort of following the evolution of Nextflow and the NF Core community from a distance for the past couple of years. I was using a different workflow language, Whittle. And it's been really interesting to see how strongly this community has grown, and it's a very I think it's a very strong point. So how did you get into NF Core hackathons? Like, what do you like about them?
What do I love about them? Well, they started out online, and I just loved the inclusive community. It's fantastic to be a part of. Immediately from the online perspective, and being able to hop on calls and meet all these people and start working on stuff. Of course, everyone being online probably helped with that.
Yeah, at the time, there wasn't really a choice. Yeah. So is it the first one in person that you do, or did you come last year?
I came last year,
Oh, nice.
And it was, it's phenomenal. I just love the atmosphere, and everybody and the world just stops for 2.5 days, and we all just work on NF Core and make so much progress.
So what are you working on during the hackathon this week then?
I got a lot of things going. We have NF Test, of course.
Okay, right.
Working on that. Maxime and I have cleaned up the GitHub teams as well, and set up some auto PR notifications. Right. That was a big one. I'm currently working on trying to build the Docker containers with Wave.
What is that?
It's the Paolo introduced it last year at the summit, but basically whenever you run your Nextflow pipeline, it will then build from a Docker file on those automatically versus you have to build, push, back and forth.
Right.
So I'm hoping that we can replace those and just build from the conda ims rather than use mold containers with bio containers.
Oh, I see. Interesting.
So all the code lives in one spot, and that's kind of going with the whole pushing these unified modules.
Yeah, that makes sense. So what are you hoping to achieve by the end of the hackathon?
I don't know. I don't set out. Yeah, I don't set out with like a specific goal. We just
get together and hack
I was talking to Felix yesterday, and he had like a wish list, and I'm like, oh, I just kind of start going.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like there's really two kinds of people. There's the ones who like, I want to get this, and this done, and then there's people who show up and like, yeah, I just want to work with people and be in the same room and chill out. So, and both are fair. There's no judgment. Good. So next few days we're going to have the summit. What's in store for you afterwards?
What's in store for me in the future? Well, I'm working on wrapping up my PhD on that, and then I'd probably like to get a job at a startup or I don't know.
Do you have a like career plan type? You want to do a particular type of thing, or you just like take it as you go?
I'm just gonna take it as I go.
That's very chill attitude.
I like to work on cool stuff.
Working on cool stuff, that's a good one. Yeah. Well, I wish you the best. Thank you so much for talking to me today, and enjoy the rest of the hackathon and the summit.
Will do. You too.
Right. Thanks.
Now let's hear from Rieke Hanssen, also a PhD candidate at Cubic at the University of Tübingen.
Hello, Rieke.
Hi.
Thank you for joining me. Could you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Rieke. I work at Cubic, which is the Quantitative Biology Center in Tübingen, in Germany, and goes part of the University of Tübingen.
Oh, what kind of research do you do?
So we are a core facility for data management in the life sciences, and I'm mostly involved with pipeline development and data processing.
Oh, I see. I see. So which pipelines do you work on? Is it like a small set or just a wide array?
Majority of my time I work on SARIC, the pipeline for whole genome, whole exome, panel data processing, variant calling. But then we have like various utility pipelines that I get involved with, or secondary analysis, like little visualization things.
I see.
Things, yeah.
I've heard that SARIC is the biggest pipeline or the most complex pipeline in NF Core. Is that true?
It's definitely up there. I think it probably competes with Eager for the biggest and most complex pipeline. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, Maxime was telling me everything about everything that it does, and it sounded like all of that in one pipeline?
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot.
Yeah, we keep joking about taking over the world with SARIC, but
I mean, I kind of like that it's got GHK in it. So if you want to take over the world with GHK, I mean, that used to be my job. Yeah. But you're very welcome. Cool. So yeah, I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about how you got into using Nextflow specifically as part of your work. Was that something you did, or the core facility was already using?
So I did my master's in a different group where Alex Pelzer was also part of, one of the co-founders of NF Core, together with Phil. And at some point he was like, yeah, I tried out this new Nextflow thing. And then he told us a little bit about it, and I just found it really interesting. So for my master thesis, I started using it. And then I started at Cubic, where I was very involved in the beginning of NF Core. And then one thing led to another. I was taken to the first hackathon, or not the first one, but my first hackathon in 2019, and just had a ton of fun and just felt very welcome and invited. And it was like the beginning of a PhD, I guess, is always very like scary and stressful. You have no idea what you're doing. And then you're like in this nice community and everybody's like really supportive. And like, oh, you fixed a typo, yay. And it's like, yes, I did my first PR today. And
nice.
Just, very feel good.
That's wonderful. feel like finding a community like that is important at any stage, but to do so particularly at the start of your PhD sounds like a really, really great way to get going.
Yeah, I think, I don't know how things would have turned out otherwise, but I think it was
I'm sure
definitely
but
I think it was definitely very good.
Yeah, that's
Good
wonderful.
thing to get involved in, yeah.
Having a good first experience like that, because so many people start out feeling kind of isolated in those kind of experiences. So. Cool. I think I still felt it in the beginning, and then you just meet so many people then, and you meet people you are like do maybe touch on your research, and you like have people to chat with, and I have to admit, I've just been meeting everybody in the community from yesterday, like literally from yesterday, right? And it's been a really welcoming experience. So what has been your involvement with NF Core? I know you obviously contribute to and maintain pipelines. Does it go beyond that?
It goes beyond that. So I started getting really involved at some point in the hackathon planning, just because I thought it was fun.
Oh, okay.
And also, then I was asked, maybe you can give like a little talk on how to run your first pipeline. And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So, and then, you keep getting more and more involved. And I just really enjoy the community work, and it gives a lot back to me to also see that what I do is like helpful for people, and someone is actually using what you're doing, and they find it helpful and useful in their everyday life.
That's wonderful.
I think then from hackathons, and then you get involved here a little bit, and you take over there a little chunk, and then you got to go to like a part of meetings where you get to shape things maybe a little bit more.
And you are part of the core governance group now, right?
Yeah, I think, I don't actually know since when, but since a couple of years.
Oh,
so, yeah.
How has that been as an experience of being part of the group that kind of drives the design and the evolution of the language?
They never really had the feeling that there was like this point of, like it's like now something changes because you're part of the core team. It was just like a very natural evolution of being involved, and then like, hey, you've been super involved this whole time. You should be part of the core team, and
that's nice.
Then it's just like very naturally
continuity.
moving on. Yeah, exactly. It's not like, okay, now I have all these extra things to do. It's more like, I've been doing all these things.
It's almost more recognition of your contribution. Oh, interesting. That's really cool. How does that mesh with your job obligations? Like, because often this kind of community service / volunteering in an open source project, it's not necessarily part of your job. So how does that go over with your bosses? And
I have to say that so Sven, my boss, is very supportive of NF Core. Also, because they have been part of the founding group. So almost everyone at Cubic is very involved, and almost all pipelines that we write, we try to contribute back, or if for some reason we can't, we at least make use of all the NF Core tooling. I guess also because for us, we anyways have to write these pipelines, so we might as well try to work in a community.
That makes sense.
And in fact, I guess RNA-seq is probably one of the most used pipelines at the Institute, and we are not regularly contributing to it, but it's there and it's great and it works. So
they see the value. They're completely bought into the value of getting this grassroots. That's great.
I do have to say that things that maybe not so Cubic specific, but like, I don't know, pipeline release reviews that are completely have nothing to do with my work, I see more as like a volunteer effort. I don't know, other people help out in the dog park or whatever. They do other volunteer work, and so this is how I define this for me sometimes. I'm like, hey, I'm going to spend 2 hours tonight, review a pipeline, have a cup of tea,
That's fair. That's fair. I think there's a lot of projects in the open source world that kind of rely on that level of motivation and that level of passion. So I'm glad there's people like you who continue to do that kind of work and who are passionate about it, because it really does make a huge difference in terms of enabling so many more people to focus on their science and really be able to do their research without having to re-implement the wheel. I'm coming over from a different workflow language, where there hasn't been quite that strong of a community engagement, and it's one of the things that I find attractive about Nextflow and of course really the amount of engagement that you see from people and the coming together to develop really these pipelines that are, it's not just the basic pipeline like code that does stuff, but things are structured in a way that's tries to be consistent and templated. And at this hackathon, the effort to put in the tests and so on, I think it's really fantastic to see that, because that is going to have a potentiating effect on so many people's research. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to get out of this hackathon specifically?
So personally, for a few weeks been working on a way to automatically benchmark Sarek on release. So if you know, in core pipelines, on each release we run full-size tests on AWS with real-life data. And in the case of Sarek, we opted for some data from Genome in a Bottle and a data set for somatic calling that also has a truth set. And there's a separate effort from Johannes Köster called NC Bench, where you can push your variants to, or your VCF files, and then they will just compute precision recall these things. And I could do this manually on release, but I just know I'll be lazy, I will forget, I'll be like, I'm going to do it for the patch release. And it's really better to automate it. So and we've made, admin actually came over, it's like, this sounds really interesting. And it's been...
That's very cool.
So this is my personal goal. I don't know if we'll achieve it, but we're getting there. Baby steps.
Getting closer.
We have tiny new things now. So.
Very good. Very good.
And then, of course, being like a group leader, helping people, trying to make sure everyone is not lost and knows what to do next, and trying to help them.
That's wonderful. What would you like to see more of? Like, let's say in the next hackathon, what do you think would be really cool to add or change about how things currently work, if anything?
It's always a bit hard to say. I mean, I guess one of the things that we have always, or that I personally always would like to see, is that especially women or people who feel like they are part of a minority, or not feel like, but are part of a minority, that they feel confident and engaged and like they can speak up. And I mean, for me, it was always has been that I felt always very... I never felt like, oh, I'm making a mistake, but like it was always very welcoming. And you make mistakes all the time, of course, but nobody's judging you for it, and people try to help you. And the feeling that for a lot of people this is a bit of a barrier, and I really hope that we can make it even more welcoming and inviting, that people feel at ease and just try out stuff, and maybe it breaks stuff, whatever. It doesn't matter.
I think that's, do you know XKCD, the comic? There's this great one of them, a classic one is the one where there's like, it's 2 panels, and XKCD is a comic with like stick figure people, right? And there's the first panel is two stick figures that are like 2 guys stick figures, and one of them they're drawing equations on whiteboard, and one of them makes a mistake, like the equation is wrong, and the other says like something like, wow, you suck at math. That's the line. And then the second panel, it's like the one who makes a mistake is a little girl stick figure, and the guy says, wow, girls suck at math. Right? It's always the, I mean, it's not everywhere, right? But sometimes you have that feeling that there's a different way of looking at it, and a lot of people coming in might feel like, well, if I make a mistake, people are going to look at me, and it can be very intimidating, right? Especially if you walk in and everybody knows each other, and there's not a huge amount of diversity on display. It can be intimidating, but it's true that I think if we can foster an environment where people don't feel like that, and people are feeling welcome. I found everybody extremely welcoming so far.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I've always felt incredibly comfortable, but maybe then I'm also not the right person to ask, because maybe somebody who is not feeling comfortable would have more pointers or sees things that I don't. But I do really hope that we can,
I think sometimes it's even just an appearance thing. Like, I find everybody very welcoming. I think they profoundly are, but some people might see the group and be like, I don't know if I will be. And so the question is, how do we get to the next step, right, where more people are able to come and be part of this? I would love to
Yeah, there was last year, there was a panel at the Nextflow Summit about inclusion and diversity, and Marcella also mentioned things like barriers for English as a second language and so on.
Oh, yeah.
And that's
true.
Certainly another aspect.
There's a lot of factors, right? Yeah. There's economic reasons for not being able to come either. There's also childcare, cost of childcare. I have 2 small children, and it's just, oh my gosh. I mean, right now I'm okay because my wife is taking care of the kids, right? But there's so many reasons why people have a hard time attending events in person. I think anything we can do to make people feel like they can come.
Having like maybe childcare grants or options here to have childcare or something.
Yeah, I was talking to Raquel earlier, and she's here because she got a travel fellowship from the OBF, the Open Bioinformatics Foundation, that helped her be able to come here. It doesn't cost her everything, but it makes a big difference. So I think anytime there's initiatives like that where we can get funding and support from sponsors, I think it makes a big difference in terms of enabling people to come, whatever the reasons are for things being difficult otherwise. Yeah. It's hard because there's like the spectrum of logistics problems, of all sorts of real life problems. There's perception. There's it's complicated, but
it really is.
I love finding a community that has its heart in the right place.
I mean, we just have to keep trying.
Yes, exactly.
We're not going to do everything perfectly, of course. And
it's true. Yeah. But when people try, we can achieve a lot of great things. So,
and I mean, I do really like this very active Slack group because no matter where you are, you can join on Slack. And there's, I mean, aside from hackathons, there's so much going on Slack all the time. And we have like, I guess Phil initiated this, like, You Are Awesome channel.
Oh, yeah.
Memes and, all of these goofy little things that just, make you smile
and it's the kind
make
of thing
it more personal and not just like, hey, I have an error message, who knows what to do kind of thing.
I think, and it's something, I think once you build a community where you can tell it's a community, it's not just a place where you go and you get questions answered, but it's a community and people there's a difficult to quantify amount of quality of human interaction that you can sort of sense. There's a vibe, right, in young people's parlance. There's a vibe, and I feel like that there is that with NF Core. It kind of sets the expectation that you're going to be there as, seen as a person, and people interact as people. Wow, that was profound. Sorry, it's late in the day. It's been a long day. But so what's next for you? What's next step after the hackathon? Are you
For me personally, I'll try to finish up my thesis. I'm trying to write it up, and then we'll see what happens.
Okay.
But that's my big goal for the end of the year, beginning of next year.
Wow,
tie any loose ends and wrap up.
Well, that's an awesome goal. I wish you the best.
Thank you.
You're part of a community that you've contributed to an enormous amount, and I'm sure would be happy to help you achieve your goal. So
thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to talk to me today.
And thank you for having me.
Enjoy the rest of the hackathon.
Thanks. Yep.
And finally, Francesco Lescai, Associate Professor of Bioinformatics at the University of Pavia.
Hi, Francesco.
Hello.
Could you introduce yourself?
Yes, I work at the University of Pavia. I have a group of computational genomics, and we work on the genetic determinants of human diseases, and in particular neurological and inflammatory diseases.
Oh, very nice. So how long have you been involved with the NF Core community then?
That was since 2019. When I first moved to the Medicine and Healthcare Regulatory Agency in UK, that's where there was a bit of conversation about adopting a workflow engine of some sort. I've been using, the engines that the Broad built, in Scala.
GHKQ?
Exactly.
Oh, wow, that goes back.
So, exactly. It feels like an entirely different era.
Yes, it was. I don't often meet GHKQ users. That's pretty niche.
Yes, exactly. I remember lots of Scala code written at that time for JTK. So when I moved there, we were discussing about adopting a slightly more modern and accessible. Sorry.
No, to be fair, for those who are not familiar, Q was a workflow system that was baked into, very closely integrated with GHK.
Yes, exactly.
And it was really meant for running GHK pipelines. And the integration made it very easy to write GHK pipelines, but quite awkward to write anything that used external totools.
Exactly.
It was possible, but awkward.
It was possible, but
and so understandably, if you needed to, run other things as you do, it really makes sense.
Slightly more flexible. So we were discussing about different options, and then we ended up choosing Nextflow. And I have to say that that's been probably, I present it this way, one of the best investments that I've done in the sense that I moved quite a bit, and in terms of portability and scalability of the code, I don't think that it matches anything else in the sense that when I moved back to Italy and to start my group in computational genomics, the day after my code that I had at the agency was running on the local cluster
nice.
In Pavia, and I think that was like,
that's
made me smile a lot, and also sense of relief in the sense that I didn't have
I'm gonna spend 3 months
to do much work exactly because transitions are usually
painful.
Quite painful, yes. And seeing your code running as is. Basically, once you move somewhere else, it's like, oh gosh.
Yeah, that's true. So how did you go about choosing Nextflow? Did you try a lot of other stuff?
No,
for
we
a
actually
while,
didn't. We looked at a couple of benchmarks, and then we looked at the code. The two contenders were SnakeMake and Nextflow at that time, and. But I like the way Nextflow is structured. It is, and then it is a bit agnostic on the code. So SnakeMake was like choosing Python, and it felt like we had a bit more open possibilities.
More flexibility.
Yes, more flexibilities and so on.
Sense.
And so it wasn't a choice based very much on knowledge of the code itself, because that's something that you get after studying a little bit. But I confirmed all the choices all along, because the more we got into using it and developing pipelines and contributing also to NF Core, I think that all the choices that have been made make sense and are very well structured and rational. So this is something that is also easier to communicate and explain to students as well. And
that's important.
So we have integrated Nextflow in several of the courses we run at the university. Bits and pieces. Sometimes it's just basic things. Sometimes it's full pipelines. But it makes it easier also to teach, and training is also something the community has invested a lot. So I think there's lots of resources available, and it is an added value as well.
Yeah. So it feels like you've been using it for quite a while. How have you seen it evolve? Like seen the project evolve over time, the language. Do you feel like there's been a lot?
Of course, there's this major person engine that is power, and. I told him last year that I think he had this capacity of anticipating things and making choices, seeing what's coming next. And that's, I think, been reflected in the language itself and how it evolved. And that's fantastic, because, I think we see lots of challenges in terms of costs of computing and, using or not the cloud. And now the choices between on-premises and on the cloud and so on. And the way Nextflow has evolved, and especially in the past couple of years, I think has been able to match these kind of challenges that were coming. and most of the added value is also from the NF Core community as well, because that's something honestly unique in terms of coding. The fact that this sort of community has developed around a code, and there are people from many different backgrounds, and you still are able to discuss on common grounds and so on. And this is an absolutely fantastic added value. I mean, we are 4 from my lab this year, the hackathon, and I think it's an experience.
All 4 of you came.
Nice.
Yes. That's because, also an investment.
It is. Yes, it is. Exactly.
It's not cheap for people in Barcelona.
Yes, from the management point of view, yes, it is. But I think it's a unique experience as well, especially for someone who is approaching Nextflow, starting to write their own code and so on. The possibility of exchanging and also discussing their code with someone who's not their supervisor, but who's also experienced as well, and different way and style of coding and so on. And here you have everything. So I think it's really a fantastic
wonderful
opportunity.
Yeah, it is pretty unique. This is my first NF Core hackathon. Obviously, I'm completely new to the community. How you've been coming to these events for quite a while?
Yes, my first one was in March 2020 at the Francisco Institute in London.
That would have been right before the lockdowns.
It was. I think it was probably the week before.
Right.
They locked everything in the UK just the week after we ran the hackathon in.
And were there were some hackathons online, right?
Online,
during COVID.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been fun as well. I think it was the second hackathon online when GatherTown was adopted. That was such a fun experience. Yes, because everybody was very excited because it was still during the lockdown in many different countries. Everything was still completely under tier 4 in UK. Zona Rossa, red zone in Italy, so people couldn't really move, and it felt like it was a sort of as close as you can get to an in-person experience, with these avatars going around, and then you can actually chat only when you're close to each other. It was fun, and
it's a very different way of interacting.
So, and now also this sort of mixed hackathons where there are people following online but still on GatherTown. I think it still makes sense, but of course there's no match with the kind of interaction you can have in person.
It's always, I think it's a difficult balance to strike. It's more work for the organizing committee. It's logistical challenges, but it does feel like it's worth it for all the people who can't be there in person.
Absolutely, yes, of course.
I've sometimes in the past been in the situation of not being able to go to an event because I have small children. There's a variety of reasons. Sometimes it's economic, so it's nice to make it possible for people to join.
Yeah, and the fact that it's live as well, because I mean the last one I attended to remotely was the Deposit conference just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, and I mean you still have to sort of ring fence your time. Yeah, so if you sort of force yourself to follow something live, even if it's remote, then you sort of protect that time for that kind of activity. Because otherwise, if you follow things that are recorded, then
it's not the same engagement.
You promise yourself that you're going to have that time for it, and then
then something comes up and you're like, I'll watch the recording afterwards because it's not going to make a difference.
It's never going to happen.
It makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. So
that's very true.
I mean, this is how it goes. You have to be there live. So I think these mixed with GatherTown hackathons still help that kind of thing, even if you're away.
It's true. It's true. So now we're back in person, and we're here in person, which is wonderful. I mean, for me, I've been really enjoying the aspect of meeting people from the community since I'm joining as a developer advocate. It's nice to meet developers, meeting all the people in the community who contribute to the pipelines and so on. It's this. I've heard that since last year, the size of the community that shows up to the hackathon has increased considerably. How do you feel? How has that gone for you? I
mean, of course, I'm very excited to see more people joining the hackathon because that makes it incredibly more diverse and there's more chances to exchange things. I was discussing these with one of my interns who was attending, and he was saying that the quality of interaction last year for him was a bit better, in the sense that, of course, I don't want to say it was more intimate, but it was 50 people in a kind of different room, so he felt like he was able more to interact more with people, exchange a little bit more.
That's fair.
So that probably makes sense, and I think the level of experience makes a difference as well, in the sense that I didn't notice this myself, but of course it's
for people who are maybe more junior and maybe a bit more reserved, it can be a little more daunting. It's true,
especially as when it's bigger. And
I wonder if that's something that could be tackled through like breakouts or sessions where you physically put a smaller number. Because here, I mean, people are in small groups at tables.
Yes.
But if you don't already know people, you might not go sit at their table. But if you physically put a smaller number of people in a room, I wonder if you can recapture that.
I think something that really worked last year was to have tables by groups. So the module groups, the pipelines group, they were on the same table.
Like very clearly identified with the...
Yes. Yeah. This year, I mean, probably with more attendance is a bit more difficult to organize in advance.
Yeah.
But the fact that probably you're working on similar tasks, it makes the interaction a little bit easier, I think.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because otherwise, if you're in these tables like this year without any identified topic per table, you sort of need to know who to ask to if you have a specific problem.
And if you're here with your advisor, that's one thing, because they can introduce you. But if you're,
sure.
But I would assume that would be especially a problem for junior people who are here by themselves, maybe for the first time. That could be interesting. I feel like that's something we should think about, maybe in the context of the mentorships too.
Yes, exactly. That's also been a wonderful initiative as well, and probably could be sort of exploited for the hackathon as well. I
was talking to Raquel earlier, who did participate in the mentorship program, and Maxime Garcia was her mentor, and she had a lot of really good things to say about the mentorship. One of the things she wished was that there was a get together for people who went through the mentorship program.
Sure, that would be very nice.
And we're thinking that maybe a specific get together for the alumni of the mentorship might be kind of neat.
Yes.
Do you feel like that could potentially help?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm participating to different kind of mentorship initiatives, and they have regular coffee meetings, coffee groups and so on in different cities, and that's always a chance for people to meet and exchange also their mentorship experience and mentors as well, because mentoring people is not an easy task, and sometimes
it's not. It's not, and there's often not training for how to be a good mentor. It's something we improvise.
I mean, there's lots of material, but the point is that sometimes when you get into mentorship, you're not trained for it. So
maybe there should be a get together for mentors.
Yes, that's also what I meant.
Also,
yes. To exchange ideas and experiences among mentors as well, because it gives. I think it helps everybody grow from anybody else's experiences as well.
I love that idea. Yeah, cool, very good. So how
the moment you sit down, you get new ideas, and there's stuff to be done next. So.
Stuff to be done, priorities.
Exactly.
But right now we're sitting outside. We're enjoying. We can talk about the blue sky. And, So what are you hoping to get out of the rest of the hackathon?
So we had different. Tasks, from the lab as well. Someone is coding more, let's say, more intensely. We've been benchmarking rapid NGS tools. So one of the ideas, for example, was that something has been done already a little bit, but to complete the integration of Parabricks, for example, in Sarek. That's something that we are trying to contribute to, because we collaborate with hospitals where they might have from time to time need for ultra rapid NGS analysis. So that could
things like newborn sequencing.
Yes, precisely. So But otherwise, also we just started a new pipeline for simulating variance in case control settings, and we would like to try and unify the way you sort of design these things, and then based on that, using different simulation tools, so translating, let's say, the configs that are a nightmare in different tools, and instead of having something that has, let's say, grammar, and then it gets translated into different tool-specific configs. So that's something that is just started, and so we're beginning to write the first modules for that. And I myself have focused on training material, actually, because we do so much teaching at the university as well, and I thought there's really no point in developing things that are specific for your course if we can develop stuff in a way that is reusable for other people as well, and maybe in the same style of other Nextflow training that are there already, that could be something that other people can use as well.
Oh, that's always super valuable.
I've been focusing on that these days. So,
excellent. Yeah, well, I look forward to seeing that then, because that's
some of the stuff will be on JDK. So.
Oh, well, there you go. You probably don't want to ask me any questions now. I'm a little out of date.
No, I mean, if you have to choose, an example workflow, I mean, it's going to be JDK best practice, Geraldine. I mean, there's not much to choose from. So, for variant calling at least, then we'll probably do something on transcriptomics as well.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
very good. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you so much for chatting. Yes.
Enjoy the rest of the hackathon and the summit. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed hearing from our guests, and that we'll see many of you at the NF Core Hackathon next year. Goodbye.